Hello, everyone. My name is Anubha Singh, and I'm a PhD candidate at the School of Information at the University of Michigan. Today, I'll be presenting our paper titled Old Logic's New Technologies, Producing a Managed Workforce on On-Demand Service Platforms, on behalf of myself and my co-authors, Dr. Patricia Garcia and Dr. Silvia Lindtner at the School of Information at the University of Michigan. In the summer of 2020, during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, India's two food delivery giants, Zomato and Swiggy, announced an overall change in workers' payment and incentive structures. This included a sharp reduction by almost 133% in workers' per order payment. The workers were informed of this change through a notification on their app or simply through a phone call. The next few days saw a nationwide strike of app-based food delivery workers to protest these changes. For a week in June 2020, both Zomato and Swiggy workers across the country organized pickets and small sit-outs at prominent city locations, locked out of their apps and refused to labor. As seen in this image, the workers demanded to restore all components of their previous pay rates, to bring back their monthly incentives, and to stop an algorithmic manipulation of their ratings. However, the strike soon came to a halt when the two platforms began blocking protesting workers' work IDs. With limited bargaining power, the workers were forced to accept the revised payment rates and continued to work. In this paper, we examine the labor management strategies used by the two food delivery platforms in India to understand what forces workers to endure conditions of extreme overwork and exhaustion despite their dissatisfaction and attempts to protest and resist. Through in-depth interviews with 13 food delivery workers in India and a discourse analysis of 82 news articles, we found that contrary to the popular imagination of newer technologies or algorithmic systems as being primarily responsible for exploitation of workers, it is rather a combination of algorithmic control and traditional neoliberal social mechanisms that reorganizes work and produces conditions that normalizes overwork, speedups, and injuries. A growing body of work in SCI has done the important work of shifting the focus from a techno-optimistic narrative of the gig economy to the exploitative labor management regime of on-demand service platforms. Prior works has also connected the contemporary managerial strategy to automate and atomize work to older strategies of labor management. In this paper, we align with a body of work that highlights how digital capitalism relies on traditional forms of capitalist accumulation and neoliberal despotism that is further augmented by new technical rationalities. In the beginning, Zomato and Swiggy offered high pay and created a rewarding incentive structure to lure the workers. This proved to be an advantageous strategy given the reality of the surplus labor condition of India's labor market that economist Kalyan Sanyal describes as the reserve army. The reserve army are people who reside on the margins of capitalist development in post-colonial economies like India. They're surrounded by signs and symbols of globalization, but are awaiting the realization of the promise to eventually be absorbed in the economy by the supposed trickle-down effect of capitalist development. Food delivery work offered by reputed startups like Zomato and Swiggy promised a pay that was higher than most entry-level government jobs, giving workers a chance at upward mobility. Given this context, food delivery work was never just a stopgap arrangement for the workers. It was, in some sense, the realization of the promise of finally being included in the capitalist development process. Overwork was thus a precondition to be more productive and earn more in the food delivery work. The allure of piece rate system was a form of seemingly voluntary control that links workers' economic livelihoods to an ever-increasing extraction of labor. Food delivery workers willingly put in additional work hours as they would often find the game of achieving targets to be exciting and financially rewarding. Consider this quote where a worker justifies his long working hours as voluntary and a reprieve from boredom. Work wasn't much. The company never forced us to work this much, but I would put in those many hours on my own. The company asks for only 12 hours of work. I used to put in 13 to 15 hours for myself because I wasn't able to do anything else with my time. Even small changes in piece rate systems had a significant impact on the way the work was performed. Zomato workers first experienced a change in their payment in the second half of 2019 when their base pay was reduced from rupees 35 per order to rupees 25 per order. However, there remained the possibility of earning an additional rupees 5 by ensuring a 5-star customer rating. While this particular change might seem small, it shifted how the work was structured in two significant ways. First, the 5-star customer rating created a service expectation that made the burden of producing emotional, affective, and uncompensated physical labor solely the worker's responsibility. And second, the managerial roles of evaluating workers now shifted to the customers who had their own subjective interpretation of what constituted a good service. A research participant described this new service expectation in this quote. Suppose if the app shows an address for the ground floor, but if the customer asks us to bring the food to the top floor, then we have to deliver the food there. We do not say no to the customers because the customers give us a rating. All of this feedback reaches the food delivery platforms. As a result, food delivery workers became increasingly isolated and began operating as individuals driven by their individualized ratings and productivity. To compensate for the pay reduction, workers began chasing speed instead, which was a combination of reducing their individual delivery times and increasing their number of deliveries per day. Consider this quote for instance. For us, we now have to focus on speed. The sooner we are able to deliver, the more we will be able to earn. Otherwise, we will miss out on the incentive. A focus on speed meant taking risks such as violating traffic rules, figuring out shorter routes, and driving at faster speeds. Since injury is a low probability event, workers foster an attitude of today's wage is more important than tomorrow's good health, thus normalizing speedups and injury. Our research participants also reported an active and granular capturing of their activities algorithmically that simultaneously disciplined them and measured their efficiency and productivity. Even though the platforms were based on the premise of freedom and flexibility to work at will, the workers unfailingly logged into the app every day at a specific time, refrained from canceling orders or taking any leaves from work. According to the workers, failing to log in for more than a few days in a row would result in check-in calls or threats about suspension of work IDs. In our analysis of the news articles, we also found that the platforms employed a rhetoric of benevolence to shape the work culture and generate good feelings among the workers in order to further extract labor. For example, news media shows that both the platforms have refrained from calling their delivery workers workers. Instead, Swiggy calls its delivery workers delivery executives, and Zomato calls them delivery partners. This interesting choice of language serves a political function, where calling workers partners or executives is akin to ascribing them a certain kind of corporate role. It is a managerial tactic that makes the workers feel like they belong or are part of the high-tech organization without actually having any control or autonomy over their work. Our paper challenges a still pervasive imagination of newer digitally mediated forms of labor exploitation and control as being separate from older forms of labor management. We argue that on-demand service platforms restructure work through a combination of the two. We have shown that these controls take the form of technological and non-technological tactics to reorganize work and is akin to what Wien and colleagues define as the multifaceted and the more than algorithmic management of on-demand service platforms. Our research contributes to the field of SIGCHI and has important significance for developing future interventions by outlining how this combination of control depoliticizes, individuates, and isolates the workers by dehistoricizing the social class they belong to. This makes exploitation in food delivery work appear self-driven and voluntary, more intense, harder to notice, and therefore difficult to resist. Thank you so much for your time. For a detailed analysis, we invite you to read our paper, and if you have any thoughts or questions about it, here's our contact information.